The confrontation between Merkin and Haydar Yildirim does not begin with shouting or accusation. It begins in a space already heavy with unspoken knowledge, where the truth has lingered long enough to become unbearable. Merkin enters the room not as a daughter seeking explanation, but as someone who already knows the answer and needs to hear it spoken aloud. Her body is tense, her voice controlled, yet beneath that control lies a fracture that has already begun to spread. Haydar senses this immediately. He does not ask why she is there. He does not pretend ignorance. Instead, he watches her with the calm of a man who has already prepared himself for confrontation. There is no hesitation in him, no visible guilt. When Merkin finally speaks, asking him directly if he was responsible for Aitz's kidnapping, Haydar does not deny it. He confirms it. The admission lands without drama, and that is what makes it devastating. Haydar speaks as though he is stating an unavoidable fact rather than confessing to a crime. He does not lower his eyes or soften his tone. There is no apology, no explanation framed in regret. Instead, he looks at Merkin as if expecting her to understand. He tells her that Aitz needed to be taught a lesson. For Merkin, this moment marks the collapse of everything she thought she understood about her father. She has come prepared for denial, for evasion, even for lies. What she is not prepared for is certainty. Haydar does not see himself as wrong. He sees himself as justified. Haydar explains his actions in the language of cause and effect. He reminds Merkin of everything the family has endured since Aitz entered their lives: the investigations, the arrests, the public humiliation, the violence, the constant instability. He speaks of Murad's death not as a tragedy, but as part of a chain of consequences set into motion long before the kidnapping. In his version of events, Aitz is not merely involved, he is the catalyst. To Haydar, the kidnapping is not cruelty, it is correction. It is balance restored. Merkin listens, frozen between disbelief and fury. She asks him how he can speak of torture and imprisonment so casually, how he can reduce a human being's suffering to a lesson. Haydar does not raise his voice in response. He remains composed, almost patient, as if explaining something obvious to a child who refuses to accept reality. He tells her that morality is a luxury, that in the world they live in, people survive not by being good, but by being feared. He insists that everything he has done has been for the family. He frames his actions as protection, even sacrifice. In his mind, he has dirtied his hands so that others would not have to. This is the logic that horrifies Merkin the most. She challenges him directly, asking whether becoming a monster in the name of family truly protects anyone, or whether it simply ensures that the cycle of violence continues. She tells him that responding to cruelty with cruelty does not make one righteous, it only erases the difference between victim and perpetrator. Haydar rejects this argument outright. He tells her that such thinking belongs to people who have never had to fight for survival. He accuses her of being naive, of living in a world of ideals that cannot withstand reality. According to him, Aitz understands this world far better than she does. Aitz knows that power is the only language that matters. What Haydar does not expect is Merkin's refusal to accept this logic. For the first time, she does not argue from emotion, but from conviction. She tells him that if survival requires becoming someone capable of kidnapping and torture, then that survival is meaningless. She says that what he calls protection is nothing more than control enforced through fear. She refuses to believe that love must always manifest as violence. This is the moment Haydar loses his daughter, not through shouting, but through her clarity. Merkin tells him that he has crossed a line that cannot be erased. That even if Aitz had committed every crime Haydar accuses him of, nothing could justify what was done to him. She tells her father that he has become indistinguishable from the men he claims to fight against. Haydar does not deny this comparison. Instead, he embraces it. He tells Merkin that the world does not reward innocence, that the people who hesitate are the ones who get buried. He asks her whether she would prefer a father who pretends to be moral while allowing his family to be destroyed, or one who acts decisively regardless of how ugly those actions may be. Merkin realizes then that this is not a misunderstanding. It is a fundamental difference in worldview. She sees clearly that her father does not regret what he has done. If given the chance, he would do it again. And that realization shatters the last remnants of the relationship she thought they shared. In this moment, Merkin mourns not only the man her father has become, but the man she believed he once was. Memories flood her mind uninvited. Childhood illnesses, quiet evenings, small acts of care that once defined safety. She remembers a father who made her feel protected, not threatened by his power. These memories do not comfort her, now they torment her. She understands that the man standing before her is not an anomaly, but the continuation of a path she simply did not see before. The moral conflict between them becomes impossible to bridge. Haydar believes that love justifies violence. Merkin believes that violence destroys love beyond recognition. When she leaves him, she does so without shouting, without tears. Her silence is not submission, it is severance. This confrontation does not remain isolated. It ripples outward, shaping every relationship that follows. Haydar's certainty hardens in response to Merkin's defiance. He does not reflect. He does not reconsider. Instead, he turns to Nazir, understanding that Merkin's loyalty can no longer be relied upon. In this shift, Haydar reveals another truth about himself. Family loyalty to him has always been conditional. Nazir listens as Haydar explains the situation, but he offers no sympathy. Where Haydar speaks in terms of justification, Nazir speaks in terms of leverage. He makes it clear that Haydar's problem is no longer moral, it is strategic. A daughter who has chosen her husband over her father is not just an emotional loss, she is a liability. Nazir's silence, he reminds Haydar, is not free. What follows is not a partnership, but a negotiation born of necessity. Haydar agrees to adjust their arrangement, to split profits evenly, to concede ground he never intended to give. He does so not because he trusts Nazir, but because he understands that exposure would destroy him. In this exchange, the story makes its thematic core unmistakable. Violence justified as protection inevitably demands further compromise. One act leads to another. One line crossed requires the next. Merkin, unaware of the full extent of this negotiation, feels its consequences nonetheless. She experiences a profound emotional collapse, not outwardly dramatic, but deeply internal. She questions not only her father's actions, but her own past blindness. She wonders how many warnings she ignored, how many truths were hidden in plain sight. This is the moment Merkin truly steps into adulthood, not through independence, but through disillusionment. She no longer believes in simple categories of good and evil. She no longer trusts inherited authority. What she does trust, however, is her refusal to become complicit. By rejecting her father's logic, Merkin does not choose ease. She chooses isolation, uncertainty, and danger. But she also chooses responsibility for her own moral boundaries, even when maintaining them comes at a devastating personal cost. This combined confrontation establishes the central conflict that will define everything that follows. It is not merely a family dispute, it is a collision between two philosophies. One that believes survival excuses everything, and one that insists survival without humanity is not worth preserving. The rest of the story unfolds in the shadow of this choice.